Cabinet Committee Equalities and Employee Relations, which has been convened as a hybrid meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as possible following this meeting. The meeting agenda pack can also be viewed on the Council's website. Everyone participating in the meeting will be attending either in the Council chamber or from remote locations. Members attending remotely must keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. However, all attendees should keep their microphones off until invited to speak. Members and officers can indicate they want to speak by pressing the hands up icon. Please could officers introduce themselves when speaking at the meeting. I will now proceed to the agenda business. So if I start off with apologies for absence, and I have received a couple of apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Eugene Caparros, Councillor Della Hughes, Councillor Paul Davis and Councillor Jane Gebby. Okay, if we can go on to any more apologies. No, I don't see any hands. Therefore, if we can go on to any declarations of interest then, please. I don't see any hands with regards to any declarations of interests. So therefore, I'll go on to item 3, which is approval of the minutes on the 3rd of September at the last meeting, please. Can I have a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move, Chair. No, I'll second.
I need someone from Cabinet to second.
Sorry.
Yeah, second those.
Okay, so I have a mover, Councillor Farr, and a seconder, Councillor John Spanswick. Thank you. Have we? Okay, so that's moved. I will now then go on to item 4, workforce data. Okay. The purpose of this report is a quarterly report to provide Cabinet Committee Equalities and Employee Relations Q2 information of the Council's workforce to assist workforce planning. Q2 runs from July to the 30th of September 25. Workforce information is a key component and fundamental to workforce planning in terms of understanding the current workforce profile and trends. It also includes key information like workforce headcount, working patterns, absence detail, appraisal rates, and further detail relevant to workforce. It is recommended that Cabinet Committee Equalities and Employee Relations note the information contained within this report. And I'm happy now to open the floor for questions. But first, can I have a mover and seconder of the report, please?
I move the report, Chair.
Thank you.
Happy to second, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Farr. Okay, Councillor Farr? And I open the floor for questions. Okay, Councillor Spanswick.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll ask one question, though, maybe others, but initially it's on the appraisals and on page 15, the appraisal completions for Q2 25-26. It's a comment and a question, I suppose. So the Communities Directorate, Highways and Green Spaces, for the year 2024-25, Q2 only complete. Sorry, my phone's asking me questions. So Q2 for Highways and Green Spaces, 5.46% completion. So two questions, I suppose. One, doesn't give a comparison last year, where that happened the same last year, but it's worrying there's only 5%. The bigger question is, I suppose, are people that's doing appraisal having training to do appraisals? Is there a lack of people there able to do the appraisals? Why it's so low? Trying to dig into that, I suppose, why and I appreciate there's nobody here from communities, perhaps maybe I know less, somebody can answer that, but it's concerning, 5.4%. halfway through the year, completed appraisal?
Okay. Thank you, Leader, for that question. Firstly, I would like to thank the team because on quarter two, we've had the detail that we wanted provided from the request asked on the 3rd of September. I want to recognise that obviously, if you look at sort of quarter two's results, then obviously they are increasing, but I get basically that at the end of the day, in certain areas, there may be more challenges than others. And I'm wondering, Paul, if you would like to come in on that, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think the opening point is that the quarter two position overall is better than where we were last year. I think that you're right, there are some areas for improvement, and I think due to some operational and work demands in certain areas over quarter one, quarter two, there's been a bit of a delay in getting them through the system. What we're committed to is providing the information to the services, providing support to ensure they can complete appraisals, and managers are trained to do so, and we'll continue to do that to hopefully improve for quarter three.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Spanswick?
That part, but the other part was about people are being trained to do appraisals. So, is there work ongoing there?
Yeah, all managers should be trained on appraisals. We have e-learning modules and what have you with that. Furthermore, we're combining, following some feedback, we're combining training alongside the iTrend system where they're recorded, as well as how to conduct an appraisal to a slightly different. Recording is different to completing an appraisal with a manager, but hopefully trying to bring them together to give more support to managers. But we'll make sure that we refresh the training and promote it actively to ensure managers are equipped to deliver appraisals. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Neil O'Farr, please.
I've got, thank you, Chair. I want to thank the staff for the report. It's very, very informative. I've got a couple of questions. Shall I ask them all at the same time?
Can we take them one at a time, please? Thank you.
Okay. One's about progression, really, retention and succession planning. The report shows that our overall head count has reduced slightly, and more than half of our workforce is now aged over 46. So can I ask what work is being done around succession planning, about skills transfer, particularly in specialist leadership roles? How are we retaining experience and knowledge within the council? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, firstly, I want to mention that our workforce is our greatest asset, and you will be aware we have recently received feedback from our PPA peer panel performance, of which what we discussed at full council on the 22nd of October. From that, you will recognise we are going through some transformation. I mean, even this committee has already been transformed to include employee relations. However, we have been previously successful with our own programme, and to continue to identify apprenticeships within each service area to address only skills gaps and support workforce planning. However, further workforce is needed to develop potential graduate and trainee opportunities. We also do promote BCBC as an employer of choice. And Paul, I wonder if you can actually elaborate more on what I've said, please.
So I think, just breaking the question down, in terms of the Grow Your Own scheme has been something of a success with the resource we've had available. Ongoing work is needed to identify where we've got challenges within the workforce and how we're going to meet them. Now that can be through a range of measures, graduates, trainees, apprentices, or reshaping services slightly to try and help develop our next group of leaders going forward, and that. So I think that aligned with what's coming after PPA in terms of our sort of transformation, where we're going to go forward with that should then take us forward in terms of our next sort of group of leaders, skill leaders, in terms of what we need. I think the challenge we have, whilst what we aim to do, some of the challenges we're likely to have are in particular specialist areas where we can't always directly recruit. So we think we do need to think how we can be more creative to try and solve some of those problems there. And if we can't solve the problem by recruiting, how can we reshape services or use, trainees and graduates coming in, people that we can help develop into our next specialist leaders or specialists in professions, really. So recognise the challenge, but there are certain good examples of where we've achieved success with that.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Farr? Yeah, okay. I believe you have another question, you might as well.
And then I'll let Councillor Good come in then. So my next question is about hybrid working and flexi working pattern, which I think is great because it gives employees a good balance of family life and work life. Just wondering, are we monitoring how these flexi patterns are affecting work? How is it affecting service delivery at all? Thank you.
Okay, well, firstly, for me, it's encouraging to see the different working patterns, and in a way, it's possibly indicative of the makeup of our workforce. It is important to understand the nature of our workforce. For example, the majority of support staff across schools will be part-time due to the nature of the service. There will be similar examples in cleaning, catering, and also social care. All employees have the right to request a variation on their contract of employment so that they can work more flexible and therefore achieve a better balance between their work commitments and home life, which supports their health and well-being, which is crucial. Now, our flexible working policy was last reviewed in December 24. However, it is kept under consistent informal review by the team, addressing any concerns and discussing as appropriate with trade unions. I also want to bring to the attention that it's good to recognise that in previous staff surveys, they have indicated positively when it comes to hybrid working and staff well-being. And again, Paul, would you like to elaborate more on that, please, for Councillor Farr? Sorry, I must say as well, we do have a separate hybrid working policy, so flexible work policy. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I think first point I'd like to offer is perhaps when we provide the Q3 workforce data, we will give a breakdown of the working arrangements, part-time, full-time, etc., per directorate, because I think I'll give a better picture of where the majority of those workers sit. We give some examples given earlier about schools. Cleaning will be part-time, catering will be part-time, some social care is part-time. So it's just getting that wider perhaps perspective of where those roles sit to understand that. The flexible working policy was updated to come in line with current legislation, and which allows employees the opportunity to work flexibly. But I think the important thing is that policy has to work for both the employee and the service. So it isn't a guaranteed right, it's a right to application, and then I think that point with the service really. So I think we can do a bit more work in Q3 like we did with appraisals this time, just to focus on something in that area, which I think would be helpful then to understand a bit more of a wider look at the organisation and working patterns really, if that's okay.
Thank you, Paul. And I just wanted to add that all flexible work requests will also always be considered, and where possible, we will always try to find a suitable option. However, like Paul has suggested, it needs to work for both the employee and the employer. Okay, are you satisfied with that?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, do you want me to bring... Oh, Councillor Beesgood?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were calling me then or speaking to John. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul, for the report. I just wanted to dig in a little bit into the long-term and short-term sickness split that's on page 16 of the report, which lists that 81% of staff who are on sick leave are on long-term sick leave. And it's actually quite timely. I saw in the news this morning that about 800,000 more workers are now not in work because of an illness or a medical condition than in 2019. But I also heard reports of employers talking about how they try to work with staff to get them more active and back into work. So using things like phased returns or different forms of duties, etc., etc. And so two questions really. I think the first one is, what are we doing to try and mitigate these issues? I mean, if someone is genuinely on long-term sick and can't work at all, then obviously that's absolutely right. But what are we doing to work with them and work in partnership with them to ensure that if there is something that they can be doing, that they are then being sort of given that opportunity to have phased return or similar? Because, I think, as we all know, people in good jobs tend to be healthier. The longer you're out of work, the less healthy you become, and that is a massive issue. And obviously, like from a council point of view, where resources are limited, having a significant number of people who are therefore inactive, not able to do the work that they are employed to do, that obviously then creates a issue for us as an employer, in terms of what we can actually deliver as a council. So that was my first point. And then the second point, I guess, would it be possible to have perhaps a report in the future that digs into the sort of long-term health a little bit more? Because we have a breakdown in the pack of sort of generally the reasons for absence, but it doesn't differentiate between long-term and short-term. The highest percentage on the packs is sort of stress, anxiety, depression, and I'm sure some of that is long-term, but I imagine that actually the long-term sickness is probably due to more physical matters, and I think it would be useful for us to see that and have a better understanding of, okay, so what is the workforce experiencing? Where can we look at, okay, if this group of workers are going on long-term sick because of this condition, then what can we do to make their jobs easier so that they don't go on sick? So if we could have a report into that in future, I think that would also be really helpful. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Good, and points well made there as well, actually, because absence is a concern. However, I'm also aware that recently officers have reviewed a sample of long-term sicknesses. It's recognised that there was generally good management of absence cases in line with the absence policy. However, it has been agreed to explore how improvements can be made further. So, for example, direct escalation of where there is no evidence of absence management, continued and direct support to managers to ensure compliance with absence policy, and continued promotion of well-being support through briefings and improved awareness of resources available to the workforce. You will be aware of a lot of well-being opportunities that we do supply to our employees as well, because obviously, firstly, staff well-being is fundamental for our workforce, as they are key to the delivery of the Council's vision and priorities. So I don't know whether you want to elaborate further on that then, Paul, as well, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Good. Absence management is really important, and from a HR service, we're trying to do everything to support managers to be able to carry out that effective absence management. We run HR briefings, we go to senior management teams, and I think it's just continuing that to make sure we can give as much support to the manager who's directly dealing with that. I think on a couple of points touched, we do offer phased return, and in areas that has become easier with hybrid working. Sometimes with illnesses, it's more comfortable to be situated at home rather than an actual workplace. So where we can take advantage of that, we do, and we support. I think we always look for what reasonable adjustment we could put in place, Councillor Good. I think that was your question in terms of that, and what's reasonable in one case may not be exactly reasonable in the other, but we recognise we need to do as much as we can to bring support employees with their well-being. There is difficulty with people going through treatment, and we've got to make sure we support them through that. Some severe illnesses and challenges out there for individuals, and I'm happy with the fair recommendation for Q3 report to bring in something just focusing on long-term or splitting long-term and short-term in the data, just to give some more information on that, if as suggested. Happy with that.
Are you happy with that,
Thanks,
Councillor
Paul.
Good?
Yeah, thank you both.
You're welcome. Okay, I've got Councillor Winstanley, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go back onto the appraisals and the rate of appraisal completions. It was good to see that some departments managed 100% by the end of the quarter four. However, some of the figures are very alarming, and also because so few departments have reached a reasonable completion rate by the end of quarter two, it then becomes tricky then to do 6-month mid-year reviews where you're looking at how you're getting on with any targets that have been set, and therefore it becomes trickier to then actually meet the objectives that have been set in the appraisals so that they actually mean something. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and again, the point very well made. Paul, I wonder if you can come in on that, please.
Yeah, I think just picking up the first point about completion rate, I think the target rate is 80% because there is a recognition. Firstly, some employees on probation won't be in a position to complete an appraisal because they'll still be going through the probation. We'll have a number of people on maternity, so the timing of that maternity may impact on the opportunity to carry out an appraisal. And obviously, we've just talked about absence, so some of the long-term absences won't be in place. So we aim for a percentage of we look at a percentage of 80%. When recently the appraisal protocol was reviewed and the 6-month review was removed from the appraisal just to focus on an annual appraisal each year. So the 6-month you mentioned is no longer a feature of our probation policy. Okay.
Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Winstanley?
Thank you for that.
Okay. Councillor Amanda Williams, please.
Thank you very much. So my questions are touching on everything that's been asked already. For me, this report, it's okay as a snapshot or an overview of the figures, but there's no detail in there. I'd like to see numbers, not just percentages. We've got the number of absences per full-time employee equivalent, but we haven't got the actual numbers of absences or directorates, and then the correlation between the two with the absences and the appraisals, because it might show then if you've only got 20% of appraisals completed, if you know the numbers of appraisals, is that 5 people and you've done 1 out of 5, or is it you've done 2 out of 10? You know, it's the numbers there I think we need to understand how many are outstanding, and then whether that's linked to the absences in those directorates as well, because there's a piece of work that could tie the two in together as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams, and I get the correlation between the numbers and obviously the appraisals as well. So I wonder, Paul, if you would like to come in on that, please.
Yeah. I think the sickness days lost FT is the common measure, and how we measure our absence is consistent, you know, across sort of industry in terms of that. What I'm prepared to do, I think, the point about the correlation between absence and appraisals is when we do some of the data for next quarter, we can perhaps do some comparative work in terms of looking at areas to see where high absence and appraisal completion to identify any correlation there, and maybe drop a bit further into the data so people are able to have a wider look at that. Okay.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Williams?
I am, but if we could include numbers as well, because percentages for us mean nothing, because we don't know the size of these directorates or departments where we've got a percentage. So numbers are much easier for us to understand. Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, I'll look to pull it together in a meaningful way. I think just the one bit we've got to get the balance right is total FTE against total headcount. So you've got to have a higher headcount with a lower FTE depending on full-time, part-time working, something we touched on earlier. But I'll try and bring something in with an overall headcount and FTE of each section to bring that together then, so you can understand sort of the numbers involved.
You happy with that, Councillor Williams? Yeah, that's fabulous. Great. As I said, I'm delighted. Obviously, we do listen to these questions, and the requests are actually important. As you can see, obviously, in our last meeting, the appraisal completion has been broken down now by service area as requested on the 3rd. So I welcome all these questions and further details. So thank you for the questions. Councillor John Spanswick, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd just like to go back to something we touched on at the beginning about succession planning and the ageing workforce and trainees, apprenticeships, graduates. We've done some great work over the years on that, but I'm still not clear as sort of a one council approach, and maybe this is something will come as part of our progression with transformation and the PPA about the corporate approach to training, apprenticeships in particular, and I'm perhaps focusing a bit more on the sort of street scene apprenticeships, where it's out there on highways, parks, street cleansing. There might not be apprenticeship, but training people to take over some of these roles out there. And whether we have a system where it's left to individual directorates or sections to decide if they want to take on a trainee or not. But more importantly, do we have a programme or is there any encouragement for workforce here currently to train to be a trainer? So we've got people who are able to mentor and train people and bring people on. Because I'm not sure how well we actually approach the trainer sort of a model to have people in-house that can train people, bring people on, whether that's apprenticeships, trainees or whatever, across the sort of coast as a corporate approach rather than individual sections deciding. And that might be something for further discussion at another meeting to really dig into the detail of how we develop a full corporate sort of apprenticeship trainee programme.
Thank you, Councillor Spanswick, and I do also agree that we need to look at finding a corporate way forward. However, as I said, we are going through a journey of transformation as recognised in our PPA, the panel performance assessment, peer assessment. But I wonder, Paul, if you want to actually come in on that again, please.
With the apprenticeships, I think breaking it down into two parts if I can. I think the corporate apprenticeships, where we've had them in service areas, I think there's adequate coverage to be able to train. So where we've had them in ICT, business support, finance, etc. You've senior colleagues there who manage teams, train existing staff, to help them develop. So I think it is in place I know it's in place there. I've seen it happen, and we've seen people come through as apprentices, go on to further roles. IT, I think we'll know some of the individuals who progress there. I think your point in relation to, you mentioned street scene and communities there, I think that's probably an area to explore further. I know we have had apprentices, HGV technicians in fleet, for example. There's got to be suitable training, and one of the points made back to me, there has to be enough resource to train to ensure appropriate work is signed off at stages and what have you, which can be different some of the corporate ones. So I think that's an area we need to develop and look at going forward to make sure that where we bring apprentices in, we've got that adequate support. I'm not sure a trainer is necessarily needed, but the right support in whatever that looks like. So I think that's something we'll take forward then.
Okay, thank you for that, and perhaps that's something that could be an agenda topic for next year sometime when we have resources to do that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Spanswick, and I've got Councillor Neil O'Farr, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go back on train the trainer, I was trained as trained the trainer for something in my previous working life as well, and I think it's really good to do that because you can train your workforce. It's really good. I was going to go back to appraisals. We're looking at the appraisal figures. We're looking at how some are good, some are really, really not so good. Is it the same appraisal approach for everybody in the BCBC, or is it different for different people? Because I'm thinking those office space is easier, but those that are outside from morning till evening, how do you do appraisal for them? So is it a different process for different service groups? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, firstly, the principle of the appraisal is the same, but how it's conducted and when it's conducted will be different. So you're right, office staff, you think we'll sit together and conduct them like that. I think in operational services, where you reference, there's the opportunity. Firstly, they don't have to do them on a computer. They can do them paper-based managers with employees, so we're not excluding anyone who isn't a computer user. They can do team appraisals, so like in the catering services, the team come in, they do a team appraisal, they bring that forward, and there's a slightly modified one for certain roles. So the principle of the appraisal, the manager meets, discuss objectives, discuss performance, the employee has a point to contribute, is the same across however it's delivered. There are sort of modifications to it to ensure everyone has the opportunity to have an appraisal in line with the protocol.
Are you satisfied with that? Yeah? Okay. I've got Councillor Alex Williams, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. It's a pleasure to be in your meeting, I think, for the first time. Workforce is on our forward work programme of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which I chair. Obviously, this assesses corporate risk, and perhaps I can just return to Councillor Farr's comments and Councillor Spanswick's comments on succession planning. First of all, is it possible for us to have an age profile per directorate? Because clearly we'll be more vulnerable in some areas compared to others, as colleagues have already said. It struck me that at a recent meeting, the Corporate Director for Communities, Janine Nightingale, said that we had a particularly ageing workforce in their 50s nearing retirement, and this will clearly lead to potential knowledge gaps, loss of critical skills if it's not effectively managed through succession planning, and that obviously won't be resolved by apprenticeships alone, because these people will be too young, I suppose, when the current workforce has reached retirement. So can I just ask and direct this at the Cabinet and Paul about what strategic workforce planning is being done in this directorate in particular, because this clearly represents a significant corporate risk to the quality of service delivery in these service areas in particular. Thanks.
Thank you for that question. And Paul, if you'd like to come forward, please.
Firstly, the breakdown the age profile, more than happy to incorporate something a bit more detail in the next quarter there to help understand where there are pockets of varying age categories across the services. I think from the community's point of view, I think there's been some challenges recently acknowledged in terms of capacity. I think going forward, we're aware of some of the future plans to improve that capacity, and hopefully then that will bring forward the opportunity to do some more detailed work, as we have done in other areas on workforce planning, to drill into where those issues and look, going back to one of my earlier answers, is how we look to upskill either existing or bringing in new talent to the organisation to make sure we can meet the needs of the services, but also try and retain some of the knowledge of those very experienced officers who are potentially going to leave in the short to medium term. I think one of the features, if I could just jump to it, and it does help in these areas. We have the opportunity where people are able to apply for flexible retirement, and what we find, cases of flexible retirement usually involve, so firstly, flexible retirement means people are able to draw down their pension but work in a reduced capacity. So there's a requirement to drop, maybe from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. But in doing that, we are able to retain some of our more experienced staff who would otherwise retire if they didn't have the opportunity to work part-time and draw their pension. So I think it's making sure we take advantage of all opportunities to retain as much knowledge and transfer that to the next generation of workers, especially in communities, as you mentioned, where we know we've got some certain challenges. So not an easy task, because there are a number of factors out there, including the private market, that impact on our ability to recruit. And reiterating my earlier point, hopefully we can get to a position where we can be more creative to succession plan and bring through individuals into those roles longer term.
Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Williams?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Chair. Thank you.
No worries at all. I mean, I am aware that services are working with HR as well on recruitment to develop suitable structures for the future. So obviously that's a major part there. So yeah, thank you for that. And I've got Councillor Rees-Good, please.
Thanks, Chair. Sort of further to Councillor Alex Williams' question, really, and you've touched on it a little bit there, I think, Chair. I'm conscious that the new local growth fund that's now been put in place really focuses on growing skills in Wales as a replacement to the Shared Prosperity Fund that we had under the previous government. And I was just wondering what work has been done to, upskill workers, put in place programs where, people's roles are being future-proofed. We're looking at, how AI is going to affect their roles and making sure that BCBC's workforce is, ready for future changes, and how we're taking advantage of the growth fund to do that, and also how we're building relationships with, organisations like Bridgend College, etc., and training organisations to do that.
Thank you for that. Well, first off, I want you to make you aware that HR continues to evolve to meet organisational needs. We are continually adapting to trends within our workforce. That's age-related, part-time, full-time, and learning and development continue to provide training models to equip our workforce for generations to come. Again, I refer back to the PPA assessment, and we are going at this moment in time through a process of transformation. However, this transformation going forward should encourage sustainability, progression, and most importantly, fulfilment in the delivery of each role. But I'd like to ask if, Paul, you would like to add further to that, please.
The local growth fund is something obviously we need to look at. That's used by colleagues in another directorate. I'll certainly go away and look at that. I think where we have opportunity to develop training, and I think that's a key feature, where we have topics put forward by services. We've recently seen e-learning modules revised in terms of what's mandatory. I'm sure that will evolve over the coming period. So I think it's just us making sure from a HR and learning development point of view, we provide support to the organisation so we can bring in where training is needed, AI, and other matters really.
Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Good?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further hands. Last K Corral, now have we got any more questions? No? Okie dokie, then I shall move on to the next item. Sorry? So if I can go on to the next item, which is now item 5. Is everyone happy with the report? Apologies, yeah? I take silence as everyone is happy then. Okay, thank you. And if I can go on to the next item then, which is Community Cohesion Annual Report. Thank you, Paul, for coming. And I will now pass you over to Councillor Farr, who will take us through that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm moving this report. I'm pleased to bring the Community Cohesion Annual Report, which sets out the work carried out between October 2024 and September 2025 under the Western Bay Community Cohesion Programme. This Welsh Government funded work is about promoting inclusion, tackling hate and building stronger relationships between communities across Bridgend, Neath, Port Talbot and Swansea. Over the past year, we've secured long-term funding to March 2029 with the potential for further 3-year extension. Delivered training to more than 180 staff and partners through the Small Steps organisation on issues like extremism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia and online hate. Seeing hate crime numbers fall slightly, though racial incidents remain the most reported. awarded over £28,000 in small grants to 14 community projects supporting ethnic minorities, refugee, Gypsy, Roma travellers and other marginalised groups. We've continued joint work through the Community Safety Partnership using tools such as street maps to remove hate graffiti and new tension monitoring systems to identify and resolve local issues early. All of this contributes to our well-being goals, creating a more equal, resilient, cohesion Wales, and supports the Council's wider aim of making every resident feel safe, valued and heard. In short, Chair, this is a positive progress, practical work that brings people together, builds understanding and challenges hate wherever it appears. So can I take you all, please, to the recommendation on page 27.9.1. This report is just for noting the updated cohesion report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Farr. And I suppose I'm going to be opening the floor again for any questions, please. And I'm happy to second the report. Okay, have we got any questions then, please? Yeah, Councillor Spanswick.
Thank you, Chair. And there's some great information and work going on clearly through the reports and the various appendices. I'm trying to find, but I found something, I was reading it, but we were still struggling to a point. I think I can't find the page because I thought I highlighted it. So I could perhaps an update on the situation with the post we struggling to a point too.
Kirsty?
Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to take that one. I'm Kirsty Williams, the Community Safety Partnership Manager for Bridgend County Borough Council. We've recently closed the job advert, having had the funding extension. Shortlisting will be taking place next week with a view to interview the week following, so fingers crossed.
Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Stanley?
Yeah, if I could just, because we weren't, I found it now on page 20. We weren't successful previously, so just wondering if we changed the advert at all or the post to try and attract. Was it that we didn't have any applicants the first time around, or we weren't enough suitable applicants? Or just a bit more vision of where we are now.
So the previous job advert went out earlier in the year, and we tried to interview back in June. At that point, the funding was only confirmed until March 2026, so it wasn't such an attractive prospect. Now that we've had the funding confirmed to March 2029, we have had more interest. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and that's key because people apply for a job when it's only 6 or 9 months. It's not great, so that's really good, positive. There's a longer term sort of opportunity there now, and hopefully some good candidates come forward. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands. Have I got any more hands for any questions? That was a quick report. Councillor Neil O'Farr, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to give a good example of working together. Recently, we had graffiti in Maesteg, and it was a resident who reported it to us. We reported it to the police, and it was removed straight away. So that just gives evidence how this work is working together, bringing residents as well as other agencies together. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's a really good example, so thank you. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Chair. Much like a leader, I now have lost a bit of the report that I wanted to talk about. But I think I'm right in saying in the report, it shows that the number of reported hate crimes dropped slightly in the last year. And I just wanted to raise that because while that looks like a really positive thing, as members of the committee will know, an awful lot of hate crimes go unreported because communities either don't feel able or feel safe to report them, or they feel like nothing's going to be done. So I just wanted to ask officers and cabinet members what work is being done to ensure that all different communities feel like they have that relationship with the police or with the social cohesion team, that if something does happen in the community, that they are able to report it and get a satisfactory outcome from that report.
Okay, thank you. Kirsty, I believe, is going to take this one. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Good. I think you're right. I think we acknowledge that there is likely underreporting. There has been an increased focus on victim support available to those coming forward, which I think is one of the major barriers, particularly when we don't have a very diverse community. So I think there's this fear that it would be easy to identify exactly who has done that reporting. Beyond that, I think it's also recognising that not everything that makes us feel unsafe or uncomfortable would necessarily be categorised as a crime. So I think we're focusing quite a lot of our energies around understanding intelligence, rumours, social media, what's being reported there. So we've reinvigorated our attention monitoring form, which we're encouraging services, elected members to use to report in any incidents or anything that's been reported to them around an incident that happened but maybe isn't quite making the hate crime threshold, but it's worth us noting because it reflects tensions in that community, or something that could indicate tensions bubbling away, any change in perceptions, any new people coming into that community that have been made to feel unwelcome or unsafe. So it's about how we capture that intelligence as well and how we use that. So we've got that attention monitoring form. We have Friday morning meetings across the Basic Command Unit, the BCU for South Wales Police, which includes Bridgend, RCT and Merthyr, where we discuss all these tensions that are being experienced across the three local authorities, understanding that just because we see a line of the local authority doesn't necessarily mean that some of our more the communities further up north may align more to what's happening in RCT, for example. So it's discussing that on the regional footprint, understanding what's happening in that space that indicates changes in that social experience, so how we use that. And then we've also had South Wales Police recently lead on the establishment of the Community Cohesion Collaborative Agreement. So that's about our chief execs being better informed about what the community cohesion landscape now looks like. They're having 6 weekly reports from the South Wales Police into that, and there's various subgroups that inform that. So there's the steering group, there's a group looking directly at communications, there's one look at the product, what's going into that, and the intelligence and the data as well. So there's a whole lot of work going on to better understand what our communities are experiencing that isn't necessarily always the hate crime, but is indicative of our changing social landscape. I hope that helps.
That was a very in-depth explanation there, so thank you for that. I don't know, did you want to come in, Leader?
Yeah, thanks. If I can just give an example there where things are improving from what I've seen personally as a leader of the authority with the police, where quite regular this last year, the inspector for particular areas, definitely the valley areas, quite regular get a phone call up front if they feel there's a tension or something about sort of bubbling under the surface, and they are ringing in advance to let me know so I can speak to ward members and try and just communicate confidentially with ward members if there's something that the police feel there's some community tension going on. And that's got a lot better in the inspected team in the valley areas. I just need to spread that across the all perhaps county borough area and the force areas to make sure the inspectors are linking in with the local authority confidentially, so they let them know if they feel there's something, there's tensions raising on a particular subject. They've done it with the My Stay issue, and they've done it with various other incidents since. So that, I feel that's an improvement in the way the police are communicating and working with us at the early stage to try and calm any potential tensions.
Thank you, Leader, and I agree. At the end of the day, collaboration is everything when it comes to success. So it's important that we work together in partnership. Councillor Maxine Lewis, please.
Yeah, just carrying on from that, Chair. Personally, I have a really good relationship with our PCSOs, and if there's anything going on, they'll always give me a ring. We had a little spate of graffiti, which wasn't very nice. We got the street cleaning team out, they got rid of it, but they will always keep me informed of what's going on in the area. And likewise, if I hear anything, I speak to them. So it is about working together.
Thanks, Councillor Lewis. I agree, and thank you for that example that you've given there. So it is appreciated. Have I got any more questions, please? No, I don't see any more hands. Therefore, I'll go to item 6, which is any urgent items, and I've not received any urgent items. So therefore, oh, sorry, can we, apologies everyone, can we move the report, please? It's been moved and seconded. Yeah, thank you. And is everyone happy to approve the report?
Move, yeah, second.
Okay, happy to approve the report?
Aye.
Aye, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And I go to item 6, which is urgent items. I've not received any urgent items, so therefore I'm happy to close this meeting. And can I wish you all a very happy